What's it like being at the Democratic National Convention as a former Republican congressman? Did the doors just shutter when you approached, or did they open normally?
I'm not going to fucking lie. This is, in many ways, this is bizarre. I'm not just a former fucking Republican congressman. I'm a Tea Party hellraiser.
Yes, sir.
12 years ago, man, boom, boom, boom. And here I am 12 years later doing everything I can to help the Democratic nominee win. It shows you how fucking much my former political party has changed.
So many of you may recognize this gentleman here as former Republican Congressman Joe Walsh, who I think also Joe Walsh was a member of the Beatles. Or no, the Eagles. Eagles. There you go.
Oh my God.
So there you
what a blunder that
Listen,
was.
okay, they're famous. They're famous musicians, all right? I did my best. So,
yeah, but were you an Eagles fan? I was an Eagles fan.
I did. As a matter of fact, my favorite song by the Eagles was written, I think, after 9/11, called Hole in the World.
Oh, good. Great song.
Great song. Phenomenal song. See?
Yeah.
We're bonding already.
Done.
So, what's it like being at the Democratic National Convention as a former Republican congressman? Did the doors just shutter when you approached, or did they open normally?
I'm not going to fucking lie. This is, in many ways, this is bizarre. I'm not just a former fucking Republican congressman. I'm a Tea Party hellraiser.
Yes, sir.
12 years ago, man, boom, boom, boom. And here I am 12 years later doing everything I can to help the Democratic nominee win. It shows you how fucking much my former political party has changed, and where we are as a country. I'm glad to be here, though.
I just want to ask real quickly, how do you get your Republican Party back? Because I don't even think getting rid of Donald Trump at this point, sending him to prison, or, God forbid he has a medical emergency, I don't think that's the end of it for the MAGA takeover.
You two are young. I'm an old fart.
Yeah.
I don't think my party's coming back.
Ever.
Oh.
Not my lifetime. I really
Wow.
don't. It's Trump owns the party, and I look at it like this: could I ever run as a Republican again? Hell no, because I'm so publicly opposed to Trump. The base of the party is middle-aged, older white people. Older white people die sooner than younger white people die, and I don't see the party replacing itself. So I don't see the Republican Party ever fixing, healing, or being saved.
So what replaces it then? There's got to be something that represents these more conservative people in the country. They're not coming on board with us, and they're not getting the coconut pill.
No. Look. I said this when I went to Congress 8, 9, 10 years ago. We are living in a revolutionary period. I think there's a fucking lot of change coming. The two-party duopoly, I think, is in its last phase.
Wow.
I can easily see a center-right party. I mean this, with real money behind it in the next 2 to 4 years.
Wow.
So I think we're going to see a real shakeup.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
I hope.
So for context, Congressman, if you could just give our viewers a background, when you started in, when you were in the House of Representatives, and basically just what was the political context at the time? You said the Tea Party. What was life like then? So we can compare it to the Republican Party of today.
So I went to D.C. in 2010, Congress in 2010, part of that Tea Party wave. And most of what drove the Tea Party there was, at that time, we were 12 trillion in debt. We were fucking bankrupting future generations. And a bunch of us went to Washington pissed off at Republicans and Democrats for all of this government spending. So we went there. I was a Republican, thinking the Republican Party is all about limited government, keep spending down. Well, bullshit. They didn't give a damn about spending. So we went there and didn't do shit. And then some of the uglier aspects of the Tea Party came out. That's what helped get Trump elected to the point. But we were like the precursor to the Freedom Caucus.
Right.
Now that's all gone. Now it's all about authoritarianism.
Yeah.
It's all about using government to go after your enemies, using big government to change the country. So it's the antithesis of what we were. I thought we were.
It's interesting you say that, because the Freedom Caucus, I know you said that the Tea Party is like the progenitor of the Freedom Caucus. How much do they have in common now, do you think? Do you see any resemblance in the Freedom? Because the gentleman from, the one who retired, I'm blanking on his name.
Ken Buck?
Ken Buck.
Ken Buck.
Ken Buck, okay. Ken Buck sometimes struck me as somebody who would feel at home in the Tea Party.
Oh, absolutely.
But, yeah.
The Freedom Caucus then and now don't share a fucking thing. Because like the Tea Party movement, like the Republican Party, Donald Trump co-opted and grabbed and took over everything.
Yeah.
Trump took over the Freedom Caucus. Oh my God. Most of my former colleagues, with a few exceptions, all got down on their fucking knees and bowed to him. Justin Amash was different. There were a few that were different. But yeah, he took it over. I mean, it's the antithesis of freedom.
Right. Yes, and I should say Ken Buck, for context, very conservative Republican. I mean, he had very strict views on climate change, abortion, the 2020 election, and he's not a rhino by any stretch, which
Not
is
at
what
all.
you're called. Everybody calls you a rhino now. Does that frustrate
Which is
you?
fucking bizarre.
I agree, yeah.
Because
You're the real deal.
I'm still a hardcore Tea Party guy now.
Right.
Full disclosure, I've become woke. My eyes, and I'm proudly woke.
Yeah.
My eyes were open when it comes to climate change.
Okay.
I was a dick when back in the day when Black Lives Matter, and I do some of the popular, the culture war bullshit. But I've always generally been libertarian in my leanings.
Right.
And now this Republican Party again is nowhere near that.
Would you? Yeah, go ahead.
I want to ask about, we talked about Ken Buck, he retired. Adam Kinzinger is out of Congress, but he's a high profile Republican out there. Is there anybody in power right now that's a Republican that you think is doing the right thing? I mean, it's not a popular position to be in. It's actually dangerous, and I don't blame anybody for not doing it, but is there anyone in power that you think is actually doing the right thing on the Republican side?
No. And
Wow.
And by the way,
That's crazy.
I laugh a lot. We all laugh a lot about how Kinzinger and me and a few others, it's not easy to do what we're doing.
No,
because
I
we get
applaud you.
threats every single day.
Right.
And I've been out here now for 5 to 6 years going at Trump.
Right.
It's hell. So if you're still a current member, unless you want to write off your career, end your career,
Right.
you don't. And I can't think of a Republican in Congress who's a hardcore never Trumper and is still a viable Republican.
That's scary. That's wild to think. I mean, I think Mitt Romney said that there were some members who would have voted to convict Trump in the second impeachment trial, but they
Completely.
didn't because of their personal safety. They're saying, what kind of democracy do we have if what's going on?
Yeah, that's scary. It's also bullshit. Like when I came out against Trump 5 or 6 years ago, and when I primaried him in 20, a bunch of my former colleagues privately reached out. Joe, I agree with everything you're saying privately, but they were afraid to say it publicly. I understand the personal threat because I live with that, but don't use that as a fucking crutch.
Really?
I think some members use that as a crutch. Oh, I'm not coming out against Trump because I'm worried for my personal safety. Bullshit. Most of them don't come out against Trump because they want to get reelected.
Wow.
Period.
Somebody that,
Period.
Well, you were talking, some other names that came to mind. So one that I know Congressman Kinzinger has talked about a lot in terms of his disappointment is Representative Elise Stefanik, who she
Oh, my
began
God.
her political career as a kind of a New York moderate, and does such an impression of a MAGA cultist. Like I don't know her. You know her,
Yeah.
obviously. I don't know if she's a true believer or if she's just really good at impersonating a true believer, but she seems to me as somebody who kind of embodies the notion of putting ambition ahead of country. Do you think she is kind of typical now of the Republican Party, or still kind of the more extreme version? Like, are they as devoted as she is?
It's a great question. So here's what's changing. 4, 5, 6 years ago, I would have told you that 70% of the Republicans were just being political, and they all privately thought Trump was a piece of shit privately, but they wouldn't say it, and they just went along to stay elected. And maybe 20 to 25% were true believing crazies. The percentage of true believing crazies, like a Marjorie Taylor Greene, has gone up.
Yeah.
To the point where I think in our caucus now of Republicans in the House and Senate, I think it's closer to 50-50. I look at a guy that I got to know well, Mike Lee, senator from Utah.
Oh, wow.
Fucking love the guy. Fucking love the guy. He was the most principled conservative in the day. And I would have told you 4 years ago, it's all bullshit. It's a game. He is now a true believer.
He's a nightmare.
He's a nightmare, but he's a true believer in this stuff.
So he has become. He is like over time.
He believes it.
Yeah, he believes it, and there are more like him who become that way. That's what's scary.
That's why I wanted to ask you, like, why was the Republican Party vulnerable to Donald Trump being able to come in and do this? And is the Democratic Party vulnerable as well? Like, what happened? Because you were there. You were the Tea Party.
That's my favorite fucking question.
Wow.
This is the one thing Trump really got right.
Yeah.
Was how weak the Republican Party was. How fucking weak the Republican Party was. Like, he knew he could come in.
Yeah.
Look, okay, so what created Trump? Crazy Tea Party people like me got the base all wound up.
Yeah.
And we helped lead Trump. And I've apologized for that profusely. But a fucking weak Republican establishment, guys like Jeb Bush and John McCain, and by the way, Mitt Romney, they fucking ignored their base for years.
Yeah, true.
And so the base then, because I come from the base, felt unloved and not listened to, which is why they clung to Trump.
Wow.
Trump understood how weak the establishment was.
Yeah.
He got that right.
So one of the things that we hear...
Pardon my language.
No, don't apologize. We
please.
love it, yeah.
We love it.
One of the things that we hear is we need not fear a second Trump presidency because when Trump tried to do nefarious things in his first term, the guardrails held, Congressman. The system stopped him. We even had 10 Republicans vote to impeach him in the second impeachment effort. There were a number of Republicans who voted to convict him of that impeachment. Your former party will stop him if he gets reelected and goes too far. What do you say?
Well, I don't believe that. And I think if he's elected again, I know some people spew bullshit, but when I say he's a real threat to democracy and he'd try to run again and he'd try to use the military or local law enforcement to help him do whatever he wanted, I mean it. So I think he's more of a threat. I think he's learned. I think he's angrier. I think he'd feel like reaffirmed. If he got elected again, he'd be fucking unchained.
Sure.
And he would put strong people around him. So I do actually think it's a realistic threat that the institutions would not hold. By the way, to answer your question, coming from the right, I think my right is more susceptible to an authoritarian or a dictator than the left is. You asked, could this ever happen to the Democratic Party? I don't think it could. Because, and again, because I come from the base, like they've told me now for years, when I bitch and moan about Trump wants to be a dictator, these folks will tell me, Joe, I don't care that he's a dictator because he's given us the America we fucking want.
Right.
So there's something on the right that is drawn to a king.
Okay.
It saddens me. I don't think you see the same thing on the left.
No, yeah. I mean, certainly as somebody who is proudly a partisan Democrat, we have our problems, but I appreciate you acknowledging that because
that's a difference.
One of the things that frustrates me immensely is how far so-called principled conservatives, both in elected office and elsewhere, have really rallied around Trump in ways I never thought. So again, let's look at the word Republican, and yet they seem to have monarchist attitudes, like that recent Supreme Court decision effectively making Trump a de facto monarch, giving him some watered down version of sovereign immunity, the thing that we left when we emancipated ourselves from Great Britain, when we had the revolution. They want it. And there have been polls about this, Congressman, I'm sure you've seen, where people say, okay, do you agree with the Supreme Court's decision? There is a percentage shift. Yeah. If you change the question from, do you think presidents deserve immunity? Most Americans say, no, of course not. But if you change it to Trump, the number of Republicans who agree jump up. Do you think that once Trump is gone, either because he loses, because he fades into the background, or eventually when he passes away, do you think that attitude will dissipate? Or do you think some other demagogue will step up, maybe even more competent, and kind of exploit it?
So I think... and by the way, I'm a weird guy because I come from MAGA. Like, I don't know any other never Trumper who comes from MAGA and now opposes him. So I still talk to MAGA all the time. And they've given up on democracy. Again, we're primarily talking about middle-aged older white people. They want the America they want, where you can say fucking Merry Christmas, and the job in town, my job at the plant is right down the street, and men were men, women were women, men married women, women married men. Right? I understood life. They want that back, and they no longer believe democracy can get it back for them, which is why you and I talked about, they want a strong man to get it back for them.
They don't care about democracy. It's more about the end result. They don't care how we get there.
It's the end result.
Yeah.
So they're okay if a dictator gets it for him. I think the cat's out of the bag, though. So I don't think, I think another demagogue would come along. I think the base has been radicalized.
I wanted to ask you about that. How do you influence people? What's your approach to changing fellow Republicans? Because I don't think browbeating people or telling them Trump's a fascist, a racist, how could you vote for him? I don't think that works. So what's your approach to trying to convince people, hey, this guy's bad for us and this isn't working? What works for you?
I'm a reformed MAGA gangbanger. I got out of the cult. Every week, I get a couple out of the cult.
Really?
And the way, what I do, and most just tell me to go fuck off. But
of course.
I get some out, and what I do is I listen to them, and I try to put nuggets of truth in front of them, like who really won the 2020 election. And we walk through, and I try to take them to the end of that road where they don't have an explanation. The other thing I found that bugs them is Trump thinks they're pieces of shit.
Right.
Trump treats them like shit. Trump lies to you every day. You're better than Trump thinks you are. When I respectfully have that kind of conversation with some of his voters, sometimes the light bulb will go off.
Wow. Yeah, we heard from Stephanie Grisham yesterday, his former press secretary, that they called them basement dwellers. So
He believes that. I mean, you can't. He lies to them every day. You can't do that and have respect for the people you lie to.
See, I see them as my fellow Americans. I'm a partisan Democrat as well, but I think that they are being flooded.
Booyah!
They're being flooded with misinformation. I love them. I want them to join me.
Fuck
so
yeah!
I'm not yelling at them.
No. I go after Trump with everything I got every day. I will never go after Trump supporters.
Right.
I was a Trump supporter. Who the fuck am I? And I like these people. These people used to be my voters. They're good people. As you said, they were fooled. They were deceived.
Yeah, and it could happen to any of us.
They were taken advantage of.
Yeah. Did you have any other questions?
So, I've got one.
Done yet?
No, I've got one more, Congressman.
This is utter bullshit.
Listen, we have a former congressman and a member of the Eagles here, Joe Walsh, not the Beatles. So, okay, here's the final question.
Yes.
Will Joe Walsh ever, you know it's coming, return to politics professionally?
I'm going to give you a total no bullshit answer. I'd love to.
Yeah.
I would love to go back. I don't have a team right now.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe I'll become a conservative Democrat. Maybe there'll be a new party.
Wow.
Maybe I'll be an independent. I'd love to go back. We'll see.
So you're open to it. Okay.
Yeah.
All right,
God,
Congressman, I appreciate
You
it.
guys
Thank
rock.
you.
We appreciate your
Thank
time,
you, man.
really.
Thanks for all that you do.
Her salary should be increased tenfold.
We will take care.
We're all volunteers. She's the only paid one. I'm just kidding. Yeah. Thank you, Congressman.